with integrity and respect. The thing that hurt me most of all was that a lot of people that I was arresting were the same color as me, that grew up in East Cleveland like me, so I couldn't understand that. Why would you want to destroy your community? I couldn't understand. I said, okay, but they're not sworn to serve and protect either. They didn't take that oath. This is what they do. So then I left there and I came to another predominantly black community and became a police officer. I'm the first and only African-American female officer, and I can say that pride and respect. I sat in front of Marcia Fudge and took that oath that I would serve and protect my community. And I also moved into my community and I raised my children in this community. I wear that blue uniform proudly. And I know for a fact I have 6 beautiful children that love me, and I have a husband, I have a family that loves me, and I know there's times I may not come home from work. I have taken guns off 15, 14, 13-year-old children. I'm talking about real guns. I've had to go and tell a mother that their 13-year-old son or daughter was not coming home. I've interviewed rape victims that's been raped by people that look just like me, the same color as me. We are running around killing each other left and right. But what hurts me the most is the people that stood in front of a judge and stood in front of a mayor and said, I swear my oath that I will serve and protect this community. And God, please forgive me, and you can delete me if you get mad at me. If you are white and you working in a black community and you are racist, you need to be ashamed of yourself. You stood up there and took an oath. If this is not where you want to work at, then you need to take your behind somewhere else. I decided to work in the African-American community because I'm African-American and I wanted to make a difference. I could have worked in Parma. I could have worked in Lakewood. I could have worked in North Olmsted. I'm a double minority. They would have got 2 hits for me because I'm African-American and I'm a female. I'm here because I wanted to make a difference. But how dare you stand next to me in the same uniform and murder somebody? How dare you? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. So why don't we just keep it real? If you're that officer that know good and well you got a God complex, you're afraid of people that don't look like you, you have no business in that uniform. Take it off. If you're afraid to go and talk to an African-American female or male or a Mexican male or female because they're not white like you, take the uniform off. You have no business being a police officer.
What's up, fam? In this video, we're going to talk about what's it like to be a black cop in a white supremacist system. Let's talk about it. Check out the merchandise available for purchase. Purchase merchandise, click on the links available in the video description. Thanks. These tees can be purchased on black, white, or gray backgrounds. Please smash the bell icon to be notified of new content. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching. Now, the beautiful sister seen in the beginning of this video, her name was Nakia Jones, and she was fired soon after making that statement. Now, this was a good cop who just wanted to make a difference in her community, and she just didn't like seeing cops killing innocent people. Now, to my recollection, Miss Jones had been on leave. She had a doctor's excuse, and basically at the order of her doctor, she was told to stay home. But soon after making that statement in the video, the department decided that they wanted her to come back to work. She said that she couldn't because it was against the doctor's orders, so she was fired. The city of Warrenville Heights was justified in dismissing Nakia Jones, a former police officer who alleged that her termination was racially biased. Arbitrator Robert G. Stein noted that Warrenville Heights justifiably lost confidence in the grievance ability to perform satisfactorily for the department based on her recognized multiple fraudulent attendance violations. Jones filed a suit March 2018 on claims of racial discrimination while with the city's department and on the allegations of retaliation for posting an opinionated social media video about 2 officer-involved shootings. In the video, Jones described her views on the death of Alton Sterling, an African-American man who was shot during a struggle with 2 white police officers. The video went viral with more than 8 million views. She also commented on similar shootings involving an African-American man in Minnesota. In response to the video, Jones was invited to sit in a televised panel with then-President Barack Obama to discuss the race-related issues. She says her co-workers at the Warrenville Heights Police Department became irate and refused to speak with her because of the TV appearance in the viral video. On May 28, 2017, Jones was involved in an automobile crash while on duty. She was granted medical leave due to her injuries until November 2017. A separate evaluation in September from the city of Warrenville Heights found her fit to work and disputed her request for medical leave. On October 16, 2017, Jones was issued a warning for attending public speaking engagements while on sick leave, a violation of the city's policies according to the lawsuit. She was fired from the department on October 20, 2017 for deceptive use of her sick leave, but Jones claims her termination was motivated by continuous engagements in constitutionality protected speech and gender-based disparate treatment in the workplace. Warrenville Heights Mayor Brad Sellers released a statement after the ruling was reached by the arbitrator Stein. The city of Warrenville Heights is pleased with the arbitrator's ruling. We have always felt that we had the grounds to dismiss Ms. Jones for her actions and are satisfied that the arbitrator concurred with our viewpoint once all the facts are presented in this case. Ms. Jones' misrepresentation of the facts only works to undermine the public's confidence in the people they place in positions to serve and protect their interests. The employees at the city of Warrenville Heights will continue to serve the needs of the community. The arbitrator also noted that in the ruling that Jones seemingly failed to demonstrate. Most of the time, these arbitrators are influenced by the people who pay them. So when a black cop stands up for her or his community and goes against white supremacy, they become targets of the police force and they have to get rid of them. Now on the other side, when you get these boot-licking coons, butter biscuit eating coons like this guy, they love these type of guys.
I've been watching this for 2 years. I predicted this. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer.
Hours after 3 officers were shot and killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, CNN's Don Lemon interviewed Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, and it was a spirited interview.
I'm looking at 3 dead cops this week, and I'm looking at 5 last year. You trying to tell me to keep it down? Bears of hate.
Know what my message is.
That's
what I want
they
to say
do.
to you is,
these people preach vile
a word
and
in?
virtue
We'll be right
in the
back.
name.
Clark claims the Black Lives Matter movement has spurred violence violence against men and women in uniform. Clark is no stranger to the interview circuit. He's weighed in on various officer-involved shootings and often appears on Fox News. Clark has been the Milwaukee County Sheriff since 2002, and before that, served for the Milwaukee Police Department for more than 2 decades. He's expected to speak at the Republican National Convention on Monday night.
It is time for this nation to stand up with one voice and to condemn and shun this movement called Black Lives Matter. I would like to see the Southern Poverty Law Center place Black Lives Matter alongside those other hate groups that were mentioned.
First of all, there is no police brutality in America. We ended that back in the 60s.
Ah, yes, those are just a couple of the golden nuggets from Sheriff David Clark's role as the go-to guy for Fox News for using specious claims to attack the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, if Clark is to be believed, he's adding a new title to his resume, along with Sheriff of a Deadly Jail, Fox News contributor, and Democrat in name only. On Wednesday, on a conservative radio show in Milwaukee, Clark announced that he had been tapped by the Trump administration for an appointment as an assistant secretary in the Department of Homeland Security, a position that would not require Senate confirmation. And while DHS has not confirmed the alleged job offer, Clark might need to update his application with this bit of news, first reported on CNN last night. According to CNN, in 2013, Clark plagiarized portions of his master's thesis on, wait for the irony, Homeland Security. MSNBC has not independently verified that report. And joining me now are Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor and conservative Milwaukee radio talk show host Charlie Sykes. Oh, team. I suppose the first thing I should do is read Sheriff Clark's response to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about the plagiarism charge. And he says only someone with a political agenda would say this is plagiarism. And he said that in an email to the paper. Charlie, I'll go to you on this first. The irony, of course, is that the plagiarism allegedly was from the ACLU. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this may be the pretext the administration needs to not make this appointment, which would be the most reckless and bizarre since Michael Flynn. But put it in some context. How did we get to this point? You have the deaths in the jail. You have the out-of-control rhetoric. You have, the threats against private citizens. You have somebody who's actually proposed suspending habeas corpus and jailing as many as 1 million Americans who might be suspected of pro-terrorist sentiments, and yet somehow he's considered to be a true conservative. So there are so many ways in which Sheriff Clark has disqualified himself. This is just sort of the last little piece here, but but if they're looking for a way out of this, this might be it, if they are.
And it's interesting that that Senator Taylor, that this would even be considered. And again, we can't confirm whether he's even getting this job or whether he's just bragging. But Juliette Kayyem said in the Washington Post, and she actually had the exact same job, this deputy DHS job that Sheriff Clark claims he's getting. And she said, I'll just come right out and say it. He's not fit to serve at the agency tasked with domestic security for all Americans. And just a few items of why she might think that. Just 3 tweets from Sheriff Clark. July 2015. 17 June 1936, Hitler united all police forces under one commander. Obama trying to do the same thing using DOJ to federalize local police. Wake up. Comparing Barack Obama to Hitler. Number 2, Clark in October of 2015. Before long, Black Lives Matter will join forces with ISIS to bring down our legal constituted republic. You heard it first here. And a third one, we don't have to go into any more than that. Senator Taylor, your thoughts?
Compare Black Lives Matter with the KKK or even with ISIS, man, you got to be a real sellout and a real fool.
A fraud, not just in their thesis that they wrote, but also in their commitment and their oath that they took to the people of Milwaukee County. The failures that Charlie mentioned that the sheriff has done in the jail, when you can allow an infant to die all the way to someone who has mental health issues, and for them to cry for help and seek help for 7 days and not be present because you're gallivanting around this nation to help the 45th president, it also shows a lack of judgment by the 45th president. And so people should be very concerned. He has a person who has no regard, it seems to me, for public life.
And you know,
for human life.
And Charlie, this is at a time when the Republican Party is really struggling to expand beyond, you know, an essentially 90% white party, and they turn to somebody like this as sort of an example of a person of color who supports them. But if you go and just look at just the Snopes report on Clark, he's currently the target of multiple lawsuits in Milwaukee County accusing him of harassing a private citizen, his staff abusing inmates in his jails. 7 of his employees face potential criminal charges for turning off the water in a men's cell for a week, causing a man to die of dehydration. He's been scrutinized for a Russia trip. That's not a storyline the administration wants. Multiple investigations into the president's dealing with Russia. There's a baby that was jeopardized in his jail, a woman shackled while giving birth. Is this what the Republican Party wants to associate with? And if so, why?
Yes, absolutely not. Why? It's a mystery. I think this actually has to come from President Trump himself. I can't even imagine that my fellow Wisconsinite Reince Priebus would have okayed this. But you know, Trump, while he has been AWOL as sheriff, he spent his entire time basically touting Trump, posing for pictures in the T-shirts. And as Senator Taylor knows, like, I've known Sheriff Clark for more than a decade and a half, and I think the Department of Homeland Security has gone out of its way to say no, we haven't signed off on all of that.
Well, just as he also goes around, Senator Taylor, in all of these medals, sort of making himself look like some sort of heroic military figure, and yet one of our great producers here, Tracy Curry, found online, she went and looked, and on eBay, there is one of the pins that Sheriff David Clark goes around wearing. You can buy it on eBay for $6.99. I mean, come on.
I told you he's a fraud. I told you he's a fraud. And I'm going to say this to you. And, Charlie, I appreciate where you are. But, he's your Frankenstein. You helped to create him in the fashion that is the rhetoric that he has done. And so I appreciate you saying, you know what, this guy is over the top and really, with all due respect, is not a good choice for Homeland Security or any position at the federal government. I'm just happy as a Milwaukee County resident that we finally can have an opportunity to have our governor appoint someone who can really do the job for the people and be a partner with Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, and not very candidly be adding fuel to the fire and almost moving us to martial law. So I appreciate someone, like the candidates that I see. I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Lucas, and so I'm really excited for the fact that I believe that we will really be able to have someone in Milwaukee County who can do the job.
Well, I wish we had more time to let Dr. Frankenstein talk about his monster a little bit.
Sheriff David Clark was that black face that perpetuated white supremacy, and damn was he willing.
Police department and the city alleging their civil rights were violated.
They were assaulted and battered at gunpoint. Mario Alexandre was dragged out of his government vehicle.
Despite the allegations, the dashcam video made public by police does not appear to show parole officer Mario Alexander being slammed against a vehicle.
Now, at what point were you assaulted or battered?
Well, assault in the civil context of the law is being threatened with force. That's an assault.
Ramapo police say they made the stop because they were responding to this 911 call.
And I saw just a plain, a Chevy Malibu, is that what it was? An Impala car with 4 big people get out of it, and I thought they had bulletproof vests and shields on.
The 911 caller did not identify any of you by race.
We can only go at the moment from the tape that was released by the people that we are suing.
Ramapo police referred CNN to the city's attorney, who says the actions of the police officers involved were reasonable under the circumstances. There was a 911 call indicating suspicious activity. The attorney also says the parole officers had not notified the police they would be in town, a common courtesy, and were allowed on their way promptly after they were identified. Neither the parole officers nor their attorney would say how long they were held, but they were clear on how they felt they were treated. And Aaron, the attorney representing the parole officers, says that they will not indicate how much that they are suing the police for, but they say at the very least these officers should be disciplined for what happened that day.
Now, these officers clearly identified themselves before they were asked to leave their vehicles. That should have been the end of it. Had these been white officers, they would have been sent along their way once they identified themselves.
How long do you think until this community heals itself from this?
I'd like to say we're on our way to healing now, but all it takes is the next bad actor to upset that.
We went to see Lieutenant Thomas Glover in Dallas, 2 days after the police shootings. He's the president of the area's Black Police Association and has the perspective of what it's like to be a police officer and an African American. I started by asking him if it's possible to want criminal justice reform while at the same time valuing the life of every police officer.
I think it is, and as an individual, I'm that way. As an African American man in America with over 35 years on the police department, I'm that way. The majority of the police officers that I know, we all want to see behavior that is improperly exhibited by a police officer criminalized. You have to do your job as a police officer. And then on the other hand, when you remove your uniform and badge and you go home, many of us spend our times in the black community. The social organizations that we tend to become members of are black, the fraternities, sororities, alumni associations. So we go from being police officers who work in a process where it's our duty to do what we were sworn to do, and that's uphold the laws. But then you have some very heinous things that happen. I will not compromise my convictions as an African American male for the convenience of being a police officer. Just can't do it. I have reported misconduct. I have reported what I believe was to be excessive force. And I have vigorously tried to call out people who openly practice what I would say were discriminatory acts or racist acts of treatment of people of color. And so that crossroads is very evident as an African American police officer because, first of all, you are a part of the community. There's nothing I will ever be able to do that will dissolve my black skin, nothing.
Your unwillingness to compromise both of those identities, has that cost you in your career?
That's the dilemma that we're faced with because we're expected to do whatever is necessary to be that officer of the law 24/7. We're also expected to be the African American brother, father, uncle, cousin, pastor, deacon 24/7 too, and that makes it a grueling task. I do think that people who are deliberately bringing forth misconduct, who, so to speak, break what you call a code of silence, I don't think that they have the opportunity to move up in police departments the way others do. When you complain about misconduct, in many instances, you are labeled as a troublemaker, a militant, you're radical.
The Dallas Police Department knows exactly where you stand.
Yes, they know. They know where I stand.
Right, there are so many people right now in the country who feel like if I'm in trouble, the cops are not who I call. How do you change that?
It's sad that we've gotten to this point, but it's a fixable problem. It's fixable by people listening. It's fixable by people who commit the heinous acts being prosecuted. And it's fixable by always giving people a forum to go in and make a complaint and listening to it and not discouraging them.
Are the concerns of African American communities in the United States right now against police departments and how the police are treating them, are they legitimate?
I definitely believe that the concerns are totally legitimate, 110%. The concerns of my community ought to be the concerns of mine. Doesn't say that I may have to agree with everything that's said, doesn't mean that everything that's said is true, but you owe it to the community to investigate, to make vigorous attempts at identifying the problem. If I am a member of the community, whether it be black, Hispanic, Asian, or white, and I complain about a police behavioral act that I saw, then we have to deal with it. We can't sidestep it.
I've seen way too many videos of problems. But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen any white people get killed?
at the profession because it took me back to why policing even exists in the first place. Police officers exist because of slave patrols. So
departments were originally created from slave patrols. Unfortunately, some officers function on the police force as if they were still slave patrols. In other words, they're not there to protect and serve black people. They're there to arrest, harass, or even murder you.
From Maryland tonight, new details about a chaotic gun battle right outside a police station. We reported earlier this week that Officer Ja'Kai Colson, undercover and out of uniform at the time, was reportedly killed by friendly fire. Well, tonight the police chief now saying the preliminary investigation reveals what they feared, that it was a fellow officer who shot him. Here's ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas now.
The tragic death of Detective Ja'Kai Colson has shaken the Prince George's County Police Department to its core. Today, the fears that a fellow officer was responsible were confirmed. Police say one of Colson's colleagues shot him because he perceived a threat, apparently thinking Colson was one of the suspects.
The shot that struck and killed Detective Colson was deliberately aimed at him by another police officer. There's no intention, as I have seen the facts, indicate any malice.
Colson, in plain clothes and an unmarked car, was killed during an exchange of gunfire when police responded to the attack. On Monday, I asked the chief about the pain of knowing that one of his own officers may have mistakenly shot another.
You've struck another defender down? That's particularly devastating.
Police must now resolve critical questions, including how and why this mistake was made and how tragedies like this can be prevented in the future. David?
Pierre Thomas in Washington tonight. Pierre, thank you.
Green says the city has been dragging its feet on the investigation, and now he's at risk of losing his home.
The moment he was shot, everybody knew that he was shot by a fellow officer.
In June of 2017, a chase involving St. Louis police and a stolen car came to an end near Park and Astra in the city's North Point neighborhood. St. Louis police said the suspects and officers exchanged gunfire. The lawsuit says 3 suspects inside the car got out and ran past the home of off-duty police officer Milton Green, who was in his driveway. One of the suspects pointed his gun at Green. Green drew his service weapon, identified himself as police, and told the suspect to drop his gun. The suspect ran. Uniformed officers arrived and ordered Green to drop his gun and get on the ground. Green complied, identified himself as an officer, and showed his badge. The lawsuit says the detective allowed Green to get up and told other officers Green was police. The suit alleges Green was giving the detective a description of the suspect when Officer Christopher Tanner arrived on the scene, shouted, "Drop your weapon," while simultaneously shooting Green in the arm. Green's family witnessed the incident. Green was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery.
Anybody that kept into the emergency room, I told them what happened. My story never changed. It's not going to change then, it's not going to change now. I told them what happened.
Yet that was not the story provided by the then interim police chief that night.
An off-duty officer who lives in that area heard the commotion, came out of his house to render assistance, and during the exchange of gunfire, he was struck in his arm.
Green says he has gone through 6 months of physical therapy. He has a plate from his elbow to his wrist and lasting effects.
It's numb. It hurts. These 2 fingers, sometimes I get the shakes, or I get shooting pains through it.
He says he can't do simple tasks around the house, and he can't do his job.
Can't carry a gun. Tried to squeeze it, can't squeeze it.
Green became an officer to support his family, and to make a difference in the community where he grew up.
It was, if you could save one life that day, feel like you did your job, especially in the city of St. Louis.
Now he's at risk of losing his home, and he isn't able to provide for his 4 children, who are still trying to make sense of what happened to their dad.
I had my badge out, and they said, well, why did he still shoot you? Their trust is rough. They're scared.
Green's attorney, Javad Kazali, says the city's unwillingness to meet with Green left them with no other options than to file suit.
And instead of taking responsibility and backing Officer Green, the city has abandoned him.
The city says it does not comment on pending litigation. 2 17-year-olds were arrested with that original incident, and 2 guns were recovered. A 3rd suspect got away. Now, despite the police saying that these suspects were driving a stolen vehicle and fired multiple shots at police that night, the circuit attorney's office says the charges against the defendants were dismissed and the matter remains under investigation. Live from the Stiefel Theater News Bureau, Katie Corman, Fox 2 News.
Thanks for watching In the Name of Justice. Listen, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the bell notification, and please share your comments. I'd like to know what you guys think about the video. Thanks for watching.